The great challenge thrown to us in episode 19 was that we saw in the script that a whole act was going to be animated. I was astounded when I read it. I thought, this is a breakthrough in television. Why are you a cartoon?
I'd ask yourselves the same question.
We always like to try and do one episode that's a little bit different. And this year, you know, when we sort of realized that the animation was going to be that episode for us, we just sort of fully embraced it.
Then we started to get into the reality of how to actually make it, and that was a whole other headache.
Usually for an animation, you'll have 6 months. 6 months to a year.
What do we have, 4 weeks? About a month?
Of course, went from 12 minutes to, we ended up with 16 minutes of actual animation.
Dozens of shots per day, hundreds of render jobs every night.
We kind of end up saying yes to everything, even though it ends up killing everyone on the project.
Originally, you know, we thought, okay, we'd like to do something like Sgt. Pepper's.
We ended up with a style more like Waltz with Bashir, which was a documentary from a few years ago. We started with orthographic drawings, so we had sketches, and then we moved into 3D and built 3D models of each of our characters.
In order to facilitate the animator's process, we took our actors on essentially a bear set.
Come on, son!
We shot them performing the dialogue.
So what happens now? Just so that they could capture your facial expressions and lip movements.
We used a stand-in for Leonard so that he didn't have to fly from LA to Vancouver.
Olivia told me she lived on the military base.
We were able to bring Leonard in, and we recorded his performance as well.
There's an entire world out there with no rhyme or reason.
It's not perfect lip sync. That's never what we were going for. But we wanted to at least get the general shape of their mouths, how their mouths worked, and when they were speaking.
Having this video reference made it so easy for us, and we can pick out the key little facial performances and enhance that for animation.
I don't know what to do.
First thing we had to do was figure out where our cameras were in CG space. So you had these, you know, very stiff models that were just like chess pieces that were moving around scenes.
There's an action sequence where Peter and little Olivia get chased by army vehicles, and we were sitting with our editors editing the very rough animation, and it wasn't working.
You know, I called my wife and I'm like, hey, I need all of Zane and Mercy's toys over here now. And got our 5D camera and started setting up cameras and angles, and it was actually a blast.
And then cut that together, sent that along to the animators.
It ended up being fairly close to what we ended up with, which is kind of fun. And then we went into more final animation, which was obviously body movements, facial features, lip sync.
Sometimes, you know, we get lucky and we can find a shot in the first couple of versions, or sometimes if it's a very intricate, complicated shot, or sometimes a performance shot, then that might go through a little more revisions.
We went straight from final animation into compositing, and we really only had a couple weeks to render out all these crazy layers of animation for shadow and paint and line drawing on every single frame.
More man-hours will have gone into this episode than any other episode we've made, by far.
From beginning of production to the end, it was under 8 weeks. From camera angles to animation to compositing to final delivery.
It's been like really an education for us all, and it's been a blast.
Yeah.